A report out of Italy is claiming Mercedes are only running their 2026 engine at around 70% of its true power. Not in practice, in qualifying, the session where every team on the grid is supposed to push flat out. And the reason might be the most calculated strategic move this sport has ever seen. Because under the new regulations, Mercedes does not just need to win races. It needs to control exactly how much it wins by, and the number it is trying to stay under is 2%. Then on March 11th, a detailed report from Motorsport Italy put a specific figure on what the rest of the paddock had been whispering about for weeks. The claim was that Mercedes had dialed their power unit to roughly 3.5 out of 5 during qualifying sessions. Not because of reliability, not because of energy management, because showing the full capability of that engine could trigger a chain reaction in the rulebook that hands their closest rivals a development lifeline. It was October 2025 when the FIA World Motorsport Council formally approved the system that made all of this possible. They called it a DUO, Adjustment of Development and Usage Opportunities. On paper, it was designed to prevent a repeat of 2014 when the Mercedes hybrid power unit was so dominant that the rest of the grid spent 3 years just trying to close the gap. The idea was simple. If any engine manufacturer fell too far behind the leader, the FIA would grant them extra in-season development upgrades on components that are otherwise frozen until 2027. The mechanics of how it works matter here. The FIA operates a confidential measurement tool called the Internal Combustion Engine Performance Index. It strips out chassis performance, aerodynamic efficiency, and tire management, and isolates raw engine power output from each of the 5 manufacturers: Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Ford, Honda, and Audi. Whichever manufacturer scores highest on that index becomes the benchmark, and the threshold is 2%. Any manufacturer whose index score falls between 2 and 4% below the benchmark qualifies for one additional homologation upgrade in the current season and one more the following year. Fall 4% or more behind, and the concessions get even larger. 2 extra upgrades per season, 30% more dyno testing hours, and temporary cost cap relief. The FIA evaluates these gaps at 3 checkpoints across the calendar after Race 6, Race 12, and Race 18. And that is where the incentive flips, because if you are the benchmark manufacturer, why would you show your full hand? Your rivals only get those upgrades if you let the gap get wide enough to measure. Keep the visible gap tight enough. And the system never activates. Your competitors stay frozen. You stay ahead, not just for one season, but potentially for the entire 5-year regulation cycle through 2030. The first real evidence that Mercedes understood this dynamic came during pre-season testing in Bahrain. The headline times showed Ferrari on top, with Charles Leclerc posting a 1.31992 to Kim Antonelli's 1.32803. On paper, Mercedes looked quick but beatable. The mileage data told a different story. Mercedes covered 6,193 kilometers across the test, more than any other team. They were not chasing lap times. They were learning the car while keeping the engine on a leash. Max Verstappen saw through it immediately. Sitting in the Red Bull hospitality unit in Bahrain, he told reporters that Mercedes was obviously trying to shift attention away from themselves. Wait until Melbourne, he warned, and watch how fast they suddenly go on all the straights. When Toto Wolff had earlier claimed the controversial compression ratio advantage was worth only 2 or 3 horsepower, Verstappen's response was blunt. Add a 0 to that number, and maybe even more. Ted Kravitz pushed George Russell on it directly during the test. He asked whether Mercedes was sandbagging. Russell looked at the camera and gave a one-word answer. No, just that. No elaboration, no context, no defensive explanation. The kind of denial that sounds rehearsed precisely because of how unrehearsed it tries to sound. In March, the season opened in Melbourne, and everything Verstappen predicted came true, except it was worse than he expected. Russell put the Mercedes on pole position with a 118,518 in of a second clear of the nearest non-Mercedes. The Silver Arrows locked out the front row and cruised to a 1-2 finish. Leclerc finished third 15.5 seconds behind. The gap through the speed traps on the if Mercedes had a massive qualifying advantage, but chose to match Ferrari's race pace. The simplest explanation was that they had more performance available and were choosing not to use it. Wolff's response was a masterclass in saying everything and nothing at the same time. He acknowledged in post-race media in Melbourne that everyone would accuse them of sandbagging and claim there was more performance hidden away. He then said that you cannot really sandbag, or at least Mercedes could not do that, because you never know where the car truly is. And then he admitted that maybe sometimes they had carried around 10 extra kilos of fuel in the car. That final detail was significant. 10 kilos of fuel adds roughly 3 to 4/10 of a second per lap. Admitting to carrying it is admitting to deliberately running slower than necessary. The question is whether the sandbagging stopped at fuel weight or extended to the power unit itself. Fred Vasseur was far less diplomatic from his position on the Ferrari pit wall. After Melbourne, he told media that Mercedes had done a lot more sandbagging than anyone in the paddock expected. Whether they were even driving at full power in qualifying was an open question. He admitted the practice sessions leading up to qualifying had been insane. He added, suggesting the jump from Friday to Saturday was artificially suppressed. The cool-down room after the Australian Grand Prix told its own story. Russell, fresh off his dominant victory, turned Tolaire and told him emphatically that he had not been slow twice. Gave a re-grin and pointed to the qualifying chasm from the day before. Russell immediately pivoted, suggesting Ferrari had messed up their final qualifying runs because nobody else improved except Mercedes. The clerk refused to respond. It had the feel of a driver on message following a pre-prepared line designed to flatten the narrative around the qualifying gap before the sandbagging accusations could solidify. 2 races in the championship standings already painted a lopsided picture. Mercedes led the constructors with 98 points to Ferrari's 67. Russell sat on top of the drivers' table with 51 points. Antonelli had 47. Mercedes had won every qualifying session, every sprint, and every Grand Prix so far. And yet, the performance gap in race conditions remained curiously narrow compared to the qualifying margins. In Melbourne, the car that dominated qualifying by 8 out of 10 won the actual race by a more modest margin. At Shanghai, Antonelli took pole by 3 out of 10 and eventually won by over 25 seconds, but largely because of strategy and tire management, not raw speed deployed from the engine. That discrepancy between qualifying supremacy and race pace management is one of the strongest pieces of circumstantial evidence that paddock has for deliberate power suppression. While the focus stayed on what Mercedes was doing with its own cars, a parallel story was developing among the teams that buy their engines.